Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Ray Tampa podcast. Our podcast offers bold commentary on various subject matters with a laser-like focus on the truth. My name is Ray Tampa, and I'm the host of the Ray Tampa podcast. We have in our studio Mr. Russell Cato, a retired educator with more than 40 plus years of experience in Pinellas County schools, and Mr. Jamie Wilson III, a healthcare provider with more than 25 years working as a physical therapist. My co-host, my dynamic co-host. Today, we're pleased to welcome Mr. ELIHU Brayboy and his lovely wife, Carolyn. Mr. and Mrs. B, they're affectionately called. We're very happy they're here because they are a very significant entrepreneurial couple in our community as our guests. Along the DUECES and surrounding areas, Mr. and Mrs. Brayboy have purchased and renovated several properties in an effort to ignite a renaissance on St. Petersburg's south side. The Brayboys purchased the old Sidney Harden's building or grocery store. They also purchased the building that belonged to Dr. Gilbert Leggett, the former gas station and auto repair shop owned by Bubba Newkirk, and many other buildings and many others. Unfortunately, Mr. Brayboy's latest effort has run into some unexpected headwinds imposed by Mayor Ken Welch. Brace yourselves for a very interesting discussion. Mr. and Mrs. Brayboy, welcome to the Ray Tampa podcast.
Thank you. We're glad to
have you. Glad to have you.
Great. What I would like to ask is, Ms. Brayboy, how about telling our audience a little information about yourself, such as where were you born, raised, and educated?
I was born in a little town called Blakely, Georgia. My father and mother, they were sharecroppers. We moved at the age of 12 when the landowner and the sharecropper owner said, that gal is too old to go to school. She needs to be pulled out of school, because that's the cycle that we all go through. They pull us out of school at a very young age and you can't read or write. Came to St. Pete, went to Perkins, 16th Street Middle School, graduated from Gibbs High School, got a governor's scholarship to go to St. Pete Junior College at that time, and got a scholarship then to go to FSU, have an MBA in finance, and worked for IBM for 39 years.
Awesome.
We have 3 children. They're all grown, and 5 grandchildren.
Awesome. Right? Mr. Brayboy, same question.
Well, I was born in Wahiawa, Hawaii. My parents was there because of my dad being a mortician after the Pearl Harbor attack. So I was there until the age of 3. And then my parents were divorced right after I turned 3. And my mom stayed in St. Pete, but I was raised by my grandparents in South Louisiana. Came to St. Pete in 6th grade, going into 7th grade, attended Immaculate Conception Catholic School, which was a little school that no longer exists next to 16th Street Middle School, and then went on to become one of the first to integrate, which was then Bishop Barry, later became St. Pete Catholic. After that, I attended Bethune-Cookman College. I had a business degree, and I have been pursuing the business aspect of life ever since.
So I can see the combination now, business degree, finance degree. It's working well for the team. It's working well. Mr. Brayboy, what was your original motivation for investing in properties in and around the DUECES?
That's a very good question. In 2008, I'm going to just be very pure with you. In 2008, we went to a Christian retreat meeting in Bradenton, and a pastor named Miles Monroe was speaking. Now he's one of my favorites. And we went there, and in his session, he stopped talking totally, asked the lights to be turned on, and walked to the aisle where I was sitting. And he looked past me and spoke to my wife. He says, Isaiah 61:4, stopped, went back up to the pulpit, and kept preaching. And so on the way home, we had to study what world is Isaiah 61:4. And Carolyn is very good in because he really spoke to her. He didn't really speak to me.
Isaiah 61:4 says, you are to restore the ancient ruins, the wastelands, and the devastations of many generations.
Oh,
That was the scripture, the
That
word
was
that was given, that Carolyn had just recovered from a surgery with cancer, bout with cancer. And we came around learning what was he talking about. We went down on 22nd Street and we saw it. We could look from 15th Avenue all the way to 9th Avenue, and we saw nothing but shuttered buildings, a church and a barbershop. Everything else was pretty much, and of course, there's little fast convenience stores, but there was no more businesses there. Because when we were in high school, there was 100 and some businesses there. And so 22nd Street was like our go-to place. And so it was amazing when when that scripture said the devastation of many generations, that was the Black community of South St. Petersburg. So we committed then, we bought our first building in 2008. And I think at this point now, we may have owned about 6 buildings. We have about 12 tenants who rent those spaces from us. And they are part of that revitalization of 22nd Street.
And they are female entrepreneurs. And this is great because, you know, they don't have to go work for somebody else. They can work for themselves and support their own household. And that's what we're most proud of.
very impressive. So you're saying to me or to us and the audience that because of that pastor making reference to that biblical verse, you acted on it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. He doesn't need me here if I don't act on what he tells me to do.
And Carolyn has been cancer-free ever since.
Right.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Blessing, thank
Yeah.
God.
So that's 2008, and this is 2025.
I hope it stays that way.
Yes.
That's awesome. Okay, besides the properties mentioned earlier, there was one property or a property that you were seeking to purchase that has frustrated you to no end, I suspect. Where is that property located? And why the frustration?
Well, they call it 951 22nd Street, the Meriwether site. That's what the city has designated as today. They own it, 4 lots. They had an appraised value of it for $885,000. We once used to own the Meriwether building. The hurricane storm named Irma knocked it down. We were forced to tear the building down. But the mayor, Kreisman, at that time, instead of supporting us, he fined us. He fined us $85,000 demolition fee, and then fined us 18% interest on the carrying cost until the bill got paid off. So it's been quite a situation. So when Welch came, he said, "I'll do a deal with you," and he did. He took away that lien off of us, and then but we had to sign the property over to him. Now we're trying to buy the property as investors because they put it on an RFP. They've been pushing us back for months and years, saying they couldn't just sell it to us. They had to do an RFP process. And that's what they did in October of 2024. And we responded. And we understand there was only 3 bidders, ourselves and 2 other bidders. And we went for the purchase of the land to build home ownership, high-rise condominium, because the land is defined.
Right.
St. Peter's land scarcity, landlocked. So in order to get new houses, we have to go up.
Right.
So our concept was to build a 5-story residential condominium complex, 2-bedroom, 1 bath, $300,000 or less to the buyers. And that's where we are. And instead of accepting, and by the way, this is a tipping point on 22nd Street, because all of this hard work we've done since 2008, is just about to mature. Now the street has acceptance. People go down there to buy food. or to have drinks or whatever. The acceptability of the 22nd Street corridor is higher than ever. But we have 93 housing units right behind us called Jordan Park that are rent limited, subject to, low-income families only. He, the mayor, instead of accepting our proposal, he accepted a proposal from a firm down in Fort Lauderdale, West Palm Beach, that's going to put 50 low-income rental units on the property, which is not to support the supporting businesses. What the supporting businesses now is people with skin in the game, who will own their land, own their site rather, and would be viable components to the neighborhood as opposed to transient households.
Right.
I want to question one thing you just said. It seems as though the mayor wants to go with the firm that wants to put low-income housing. The proposal that I saw didn't suggest low-income housing. They wanted to put condos on it, a condo with only 250 square feet, 250 square feet for 250,000. And the next size, I can't remember the square footage, but the next size was 300,000 for that particular.
For a larger
condo.
size.
For a larger size. So where is that affordable? Where is that affordable?
No.
So I question that one point. But the fact of the matter is, I understand that you went and spoke to city council on Thursday. How did that go?
Well, the only reason I went to city council was I got a call a week before directly from the mayor, Ken Welch, telling Carolyn and I that he did not select us, that he has chosen to go with a firm from South Florida. And we were very disappointed with that, because all during his campaign, he was very supportive of what we were doing, acknowledged it. And of course, we thought he would be a great answer to our history in St. Pete, being the first first African-American mayor. But I was there to tell the city council of what he said, that he was not selecting us, and that even though we were local, and even though we were encouraging home ownership, he found a reason not to select us. And the council did not know that we were bidders, and they did not know that we were part of the rejected group. So my job was to inform them.
Right.
And I understand that the council members were very receptive to the presentation, and they were very appreciative of you having informed them of things they didn't know. They didn't know. They did not know that Mr. Brayboy and his wife had submitted a proposal. Is that correct?
That is correct.
They did not know the other non-selected entity had submitted a proposal. They only got information about the one that Ken Welch selected. It was as if he was trying to hide something. It was as if he was trying to hide something. Am I characterizing this correctly?
Well, we're still operating in a state of shock. I did not believe the young man would make that kind of a decision against people of his own kind, from the community from whence he was raised in, where his father also established a great reputation in. I wouldn't think that he would think that a bidder from South Florida would be the best person to come in the heart of the African-American historical community. I mean, 22nd Street is our history.
Right.
When anybody think about where you raised in if you were raised in South St. Pete, you gotta know 22nd Street. You gotta know the DUECES. So the idea that you would use a firm from out of town to do something that's in the heart of the DUECES, we would be more user-friendly because we know the rest of the community.
Right.
As opposed to an outsider who comes in like a gentrifier. They come in like gentrifiers. First thing they do, they gate it up, they fence off their territory, they make it so it's non-accessible. And so you're not like a part. It's just like how I feel when I pass by the Job Corps program. Man, one day that was our community one time. Now it's a fenced off, gated off, monstrous area that we have nothing to do with.
Excellent point. Ms. Brayboy, offer a
Yes.
comment to me.
Well, we grew up in the area. We know the area. We've been working with the entrepreneurs, bringing them into lease or rent the buildings that we own, and other entrepreneurs whose buildings we don't own. So we've done, informal studies of their needs, and we designed our condominiums to meet and satisfy those needs. Actually, we have started a pipeline of residents, heirs of residences from the old gas plant area. Those people got displaced and lost generational wealth.
Mhm.
So what we're trying to do is any of those people that had and are interested in purchasing a home, we can provide that's fulfill that need for them. So we, I am sure there are companies that have a lot more revenue, generate a lot more revenue, bigger operations, all of that. That's not what we need. We need something that is customized and localized for our community.
Exactly.
Excellent, excellent. Now, as far as the mayor is concerned, he called you to let you know that you were not being selected. But you had been trying to communicate with him prior to that call without success. Is that correct?
Well, the RFP had a requirement saying that you could not speak to staff or the mayor's office or anyone associated to the mayor's office until the decision has been made. So once that October starting point started on the RFP and we submitted, we could no longer speak to the staff, but we were in there meeting with them in September. I made an offer to the staff in September in which they said, take it back because we're going to do something unique next month, which is the RFP.
But I think one point I want to just make, we met with him back in April or earlier part of the year. He was very encouraging. He says, I will intentionally be inclusive. So that, so it really took me by shock. I mean, I don't want them to give us anything,
Right.
because we can compete, but I also was surprised that it was a change of heart.
As African-American business owners, we would think that our political allies would support us.
Mhm.
Of course, when you compare us to an established firm out of South Florida that's done this all their years and years, sure, they got a bigger spreadsheet than we do,
Mhm.
historical references than we do, but we were looking for a start. I mean, it's not that we don't have the ability. You can see of the 6 buildings we already own on 22nd Street. It's not like we don't know how to operate in a
Right.
business manner. And our tenants are very satisfied with their lease agreements and are operating in a very effective way. So for those reasons, we thought we could compete against that competition, whatever it was, because of that local history.
I remember reading something in an article written by Corey Gibbons Jr. In 2021. He wrote an excellent article, I feel. And in that article, you pointed out that you wanted to offer your renters a rate that would allow them to experience success in whatever business venture they were trying to make work.
Right.
And I can appreciate that. I remember when you put Chief Creole up for rent, I called you to inquire. I felt like the rent you were asking was great. But the only reason I didn't pursue it was I said, I'm too old for that. I said, I'm too old for that. Enough of that.
Yeah.
Well, Chief's Creole Cafe operated for 10 consecutive years, but it turned the 22nd Street corridor around from desolate to busy. All of a sudden, our white clientele, which was 65% of our volume of business, was consistently coming in the door. Where the projections were when we opened up was whites are never going to come down on 22nd Street and do any business with you. And they were sadly wrong. Good thing they were wrong. But we had put it all up. So we were all in. And so we've been believing. So anyway, after 10 years, I was just 74 years of age and ready to retire.
Right.
So that was 2 years ago. But it was nothing, the business volume. And now the two entrepreneurs that's taking that space, Sid's Caribbean and the Catalyst, are doing phenomenally well.
People have someplace to go.
Right.
Now, the building next to the Catalyst, and I see they now have office space in that building, where Carla Bristol used to be.
That is
Correct.
correct.
That's your building.
That's my
Yes.
building as well. And then the Catalyst, as soon as that space got available, they asked for it because they had no personal space for an office. They wanted private, they wanted some additional bathrooms and things like that. So yes, they became our #1 tenant for that space. And of course, Heavy's restaurant, soul food restaurant is next door to that.
Correct.
Okay.
All right, let's go to the building where Lorraine's Fish House is.
Right.
Is that your building?
Yes, we
Yes.
acquired that building in 2019 from the gentleman, I can't think of his name right now, Mr. Porter. But he had 5 pages of deficiencies and violations. So we had lots of work to do on that building. But Miss Lorraine, we told him and we told her we would protect her space. And she's been now there for 30 years
Years.
operating. And so now we have a new restaurant that's gonna come on upstairs. Young lady named Melissa and her partner named Brandy. They have a restaurant in Tampa called Oasis, and they're doing phenomenally well. They're from St. Pete, and they want to come to St. Pete with their new restaurant.
They want to be upstairs.
They want to
where
be
the
upstairs,
business is,
right? Yes,
Over
yes.
Lorraine.
Which used to be a hotel.
Yes, it used to be a residential.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes,
right.
yes, we're converting that. We're
Yeah.
converting that now
Are you
to.
two aware that my dad had his fish market in that space where Lorraine's?
No.
No, that was
Oh.
my dad's fish market until he suffered a stroke. Morris used to work in that fish market.
Wow.
Wow.
It was Suncoast Seafood
Mm.
for years,
Wow.
where Lorraine's is.
Yes.
Morris got hit by a car on that street behind Lorraine's before you go into Jordan Park,
Right,
that
right.
street. He got hit by a car right there on roller skates, because he would go up there every day and work in my dad's fish market. And I guess he was on break and went skating and broke every bone in his body. My brother was in a body cast
Oh,
for
wow.
almost a year, a
Wow.
full body cast. I'm so familiar. I'm so familiar with the DUECES.
Well, Ray, that's what's so important about those buildings on 22nd Street. Everybody knows somebody that had a business or lived in that area.
Yeah.
So Sidney Harden is the most famous. Mr. Washington's Tavern was there, and on and on.
Silver Shoe
Silver
Shop.
Shop. You know,
Right
Air
across the
shoe
street
right
from
across
my
the
dad's.
street.
and Mr. Chapman, the
Yeah,
tailor.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, back in the days, you wore bell bottom pants. They didn't sell it in the stores. You had to go to a black tailor to get those pants made for you.
And Mr. Mann Clothing Store.
Yes.
Then
Yes.
they eventually moved on Central.
So 22nd Street is,
Oils.
yeah, 22nd Street is critical to our history.
Yeah,
Oh, I
and,
know.
and you would think that the mayor would understand that. You would think the mayor would understand that. But this guy is operating in a silo. He's operating in a silo. He's not caring much about his surroundings. And I know some people are not gonna be happy with me saying that, but I don't care. This program says that we offer bold commentary on various subject matters with a laser-like focus on the truth. And if anybody want to look at our sign, there it is. I pledge allegiance to the truth. That's all we're talking about, the truth.
We hear stories after stories of him the mayor not getting in contact with people. A lot of disappointed people that voted for him. You know, not just the whole baseball team thing, but just other issues. And it's all somewhat disappointing. So, and this is very disappointing. Were you one of the first bidders? For
We don't know,
you know,
because we
okay.
turned it in.
Okay.
On the date,
Right.
on the time.
Right.
So we
Make
don't
sure.
know whether or not we were first or not,
Yeah.
but there was some comments that perhaps we were the only bidders
Ah.
at one time.
But we don't know
But
that.
we don't
for
know that for a fact. And then the bid period got extended, and it was justified, the extension was because of the storm.
That's for the shenanigans.
And so then later on, there ended up being 3 bidders.
Mm.
But the bidder that he selected has a project that they have built in St. Pete, so they have history together. The city logo is on their website.
You know, I think what I have learned, I've listened to all of you, and when you go back and really study American history, the foundation of American economy is based on capitalism. And I heard what you said, and I look at what you said, the empathy that people should have for this community. but I don't see empathy ruling over money. You understand what I'm saying? When I look at St. Petersburg, when I look at the gas plant area, this is 85 acres of wealthy land. Do you know what that means? 85 acres of wealthy land, which means who is going to control this piece of land? You got to understand this. So when you put in your bid and you look at the Ray Hines bid, who has the most money to develop this thing? You understand what I'm saying? I understand where you're coming from, Mr. Brayboy, and I hope you do well. But here are three things that I look at in these planning. And you said it at one time, transparency. There's no transparency here. No. Not only that, look at your personal. If people are trying to establish something for their personal interest, that's a big thing. There's a personal interest here with the Ray Hines thing. You see? And now another thing I want to say to people too. They talk about this destroying this program called DEI. Well, that's what they're doing. If you look at that I word, inclusion is very important. If I can destroy inclusion, if I can destroy equity, if I can destroy diversity, you through. That's what they're doing. If you go back and look at the history, the gas plant history, the rich environment, the rich education, I tell people, I wonder why we integrated. Seriously, why did we integrate? We didn't need it. You know, what has baseball done for this era, Mr. Brayboy?
Nothing.
Absolutely.
But they got to bring on to something to tell us. And see, I heard what you, our people got to get educated.
Educated.
See, our people got to get educated what is going on with this thing.
Yeah, and know your local history.
And I love what you're saying, and I love what you're trying to. Here is gentrification looking at us right in the face.
Absolutely.
And the mayor
Yes.
pushes gentrification.
Yeah,
And he's
Yeah.
pushing hard.
truly.
He's a poor decision maker,
Yeah.
as far as I'm concerned. And when we talk about, excuse me, and when we talk about the fact that he's making poor decisions, he has to be held accountable
Yes.
for these poor decisions.
Yes.
Look at the $250,000 he divided amongst 17 of his employees.
Right away.
Bonuses.
For
Yeah,
bonuses.
right
Mhm.
away.
$250,000, and he said boldly, I have the authority to do it and I have the money.
That's right.
But after the city council members and the
Push back.
public criticized him, it's his fault, the HR director's fault, for not giving
You wanna
him
pass
better
the buck.
advice.
Yeah.
That was poor. As far as I'm concerned, that was one of the poorest decisions he's ever made. You can't boldly say, I have the authority to do it, so I did it, but then blame somebody else, the HR director. But just as Gabbard and other city council people, such as Driscoll, complained that they knew nothing about what you presented to city council during that particular period about the bonuses, they complained that they didn't know anything about those bonuses. They found out about those bonuses in social media. In social media. These are city
Mm.
council members who are charged with the responsibility of helping to govern this city. And the mayor is trying to treat them as though they don't matter. Well, I'm gonna say this. Mr. and Mrs. Brayboy, thanks a lot for being here.
Yes, sir.
We hope
Thank you very
that
much.
the information that came out of this podcast
Truly.
will, I know he's gonna get it. I hope it gives him an opportunity to seriously reconsider
Right.
what he's
Evaluate.
trying to do
Right.
and go with the individuals, Mr. and Mrs. Brayboy, who have the history and the care for this community. History and care. as opposed to an organization
Yeah.
that has the huge dollars that you might want to help you with your re-election campaign.
Mhm. They truly have skin in the game.
With that in mind, Mr. and Mrs. Brayboy, thanks for being here. We certainly appreciate the opportunity to talk to you, my co-hosts, Jamie and Russ. As always, job well done. Certainly appreciate it. And to our listeners, thanks for tuning in to the Ray Tampa Podcast on 99.1 FM The Bird each and every Tuesday, 5:30 p.m. And we ask that you go to YouTube, type in the Ray Tampa Podcast, and you can see them all. And with that being said, good evening.